Danica Reed didn't mean to launch her mango smoothie across the sidewalk and straight into the chest of a stranger. It just sort of happened when she tripped on her untied shoelace and flung her hand out for balance. "Oh my God," she gasped, eyes wide as the cold orange liquid splattered across his crisp white dress shirt. "I am so sorry," the man blinked, stunned, then looked down at his now yellow-stained shirt. The splash had caught his expensive-looking navy blazer, too. A few slow blinks later, he looked up at her. His jaw was sharp, his eyes piercing, and his expression unreadable. Danica's heart dropped. "Please don't sue me, or call the cops, or whatever rich people do when they get smoothie bombed." A pause. Then he said, "Well, that's a first. I can buy you a new shirt," she offered quickly, digging into her canvas tote bag for her wallet. "I mean, I can try. I'm in between paychecks and my rent just went up, but I can probably Venmo you something. I don't want your money," he said, brushing mango pulp off his sleeve. "Are you all right?" She blinked. "You're asking if I'm okay? You face-planted in the middle of Fifth Avenue with a smoothie grenade." "Yeah, I'm asking." Danica let out a nervous laugh. "I guess I'm okay, just embarrassed and clumsy, and now definitely banned from this smoothie bar." He stared at her for a second longer, then surprisingly he smiled. It was small, crooked, and weirdly hot. "Let me get you a new one," he said. "A smoothie," he nodded. "It's the least I can do for surviving your aim," she blinked. "Wait, are you serious?" "Dead serious." Danica hesitated. This man looked like he stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tall, broad shoulders, tailored clothes, impossibly clean shoes well before the smoothie disaster. And now he wanted to buy her another smoothie. "Okay," she said slowly. "But only if you let me pay for your dry cleaning." He gave her a look. "You think I dry clean? Right, you probably just burn your clothes and buy new ones. You're not far off." She laughed, and he held the door open for her as they walked back into the smoothie bar. The same girl who had taken her order earlier gawked at Danica, clearly recognizing the man behind her. He's with me," Danica said awkwardly. "I splattered mango on his sole." The man chuckled, then leaned toward the counter. "I'll have what she had, and whatever she wants now." As they waited, Danica tilted her head. "I'm Danica, by the way." "Marcus," he said. "Marcus." He paused. "Keller." Why did that name sound familiar? Before she could place it, their drinks were ready. He handed hers over, then took a sip of his own. "Not bad," he said. "Still think it tastes better on my shirt," she laughed. "You're oddly calm about all this." "I've had worse things thrown at me." Danica raised a brow. "Do people throw stuff at you often? You'd be surprised." They walked outside, and Danica took a moment to really look at him. There was something polished about him, but not in a flashy way, more like powerful, intimidating, but not in a mean way. Like he could walk into a room and own it without saying a single word. "So, Marcus Keller," she said, "what do you do that gets you smoothie attacked on weekdays?" He looked at her, then took a sip. "I run a company." "Oh, cool, like, what kind of company?" "Tech," she nodded slowly. "So like, you're a tech guy," he shrugged. "More or less," she squinted at him. "You're being vague." "I find I get better conversations when I am." That made her laugh again. "Mysterious, smoothie stained." "I like it." They walked a few more steps, and Danica realized she didn't want to go back to her apartment just yet. It was small, stuffy, and full of bills she didn't want to look at. "You have somewhere to be?" she asked. He checked his watch, a sleek silver thing that probably cost more than her entire kitchen. "No," he said. "I canceled my meeting after the mango explosion." "What? No, you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." She bit her lip. "Okay, seriously, who are you? I told you." "Marcus?" "Yeah, but like, the full story. You're not just some guy walking around in a $10,000 suit who's weirdly chill about being attacked by fruit." He gave her a look. "You looked like you were having a rough day." That shut her up for a second, because she had been. She'd just gotten off a phone call where her boss told her that her freelance contract was ending early. She was 2 weeks from rent, with no backup plan, and she'd stepped in a puddle that soaked her sock an hour earlier. It was a disaster of a day. "How'd you know?" she asked, quieter now. He shrugged. I've had a few of those myself. They walked into Central Park and sat on a bench. The spring air was warm, the trees half bloomed, and the city buzzed around them like a movie backdrop. "You're not from here, are you?" he asked. Danica shook her head. "Nope, moved from Indiana." "I thought New York would be, I don't know, a dream." "And it's not," she stared at the skyline. "Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just hard." He nodded like he understood. They talked for another hour about everything and nothing. She told him about her failed art degree, how she worked part-time at a bookstore, and how she painted murals on weekends. He told her about growing up in Boston, his love for chess, and how he hated cucumbers. When the sun started dipping lower, Danica stood. "Well, this has been officially the weirdest and best smoothie accident of my life." Marcus stood too. "Can I see you again?" She blinked. "Wait, what?" He looked serious now. "I'd like to take you to dinner." Danica stared at him. "Like a date?" "Yes, a real one." "No smoothies involved." Her heart flipped. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." She hesitated. "Okay, but I swear if you're some secret billionaire or something, I'm going to throw another drink at you." Marcus smiled. "Guess you'll have to find out." And as he handed her his card just in case, he said, Danica glanced at the gold-embossed letters and felt her stomach drop. "Marcus Keller, CEO, Keller Innovations." Oh no, she looked up at him, stunned. "You're Marcus Keller, as in?" "The Marcus Keller," he looked amused. "Still thinking about that second smoothie," she burst out laughing. "You're insane. And you're interesting." And as she walked away, her heart pounding, she realized something terrifying. She wanted to see him again. Badly. Danica stood frozen on the subway platform, still gripping Marcus Keller's business card like it might combust in her hand. The train screeched into the station, but she didn't move. She couldn't. Her brain kept looping the same thought. She'd just spent 2 hours with a man who owned one of the most powerful tech empires in the country, and she hadn't even realized it. Worse, she'd insulted his shirt, accused him of being mysterious on purpose, and laughed at the idea of him being rich, and he'd asked her out anyway. The train doors closed without her. She didn't care. By the time she finally made it back to her shoebox apartment, the sun had dipped behind the buildings, and the city had slipped into its glittering nighttime version. Her roommate, Talia, was sprawled on the couch surrounded by takeout containers and a half-finished jigsaw puzzle. "You look like you just saw a ghost," Talia said, popping a dumpling into her mouth. "Or won the lottery and don't know how to process it." "I think I did both." Danica dropped her bag onto the floor and collapsed into the armchair like her legs had finally given up. "I met a guy." Talia raised an eyebrow. "That's not lottery news unless he's buying you a yacht." Danica tossed the card across the coffee table. Talia leaned forward, read it, and promptly choked on her dumpling. "Shut up," she wheezed. "No way." "He bought me another smoothie," Danica said faintly. "Then asked me to dinner." Talia blinked. "You're telling me that not only did you meet Marcus Keller, but you managed to douse him in fruit and get a date out of it." "I didn't know who he was." "That might be why it worked." Danica groaned and sank lower into the chair. "What the hell am I supposed to wear to dinner with someone who probably eats with people who own private islands? Something that doesn't look like it came from a clearance bin." Danica threw a pillow at her. Still, 2 days later, that question haunted her as she stood in front of the mirror in a borrowed silk blouse and the nicest pants she owned. Talia had threatened to disown her if she wore sneakers, so she'd squeezed into heels that pinched and prayed she wouldn't trip again. When she reached the address Marcus had given her, her jaw nearly hit the sidewalk. It wasn't a restaurant. It was a penthouse. A doorman greeted her by name and sent her up in a private elevator with mirrored walls and soft music playing from invisible speakers. The air inside the car smelled faintly of cedar and something expensive she couldn't place. The elevator doors opened into a 2-story living space with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city like a movie set. A long table was set near the glass, candlelight flickering between crystal glasses and silver cutlery. Marcus stood at the far end, pouring wine into 2 glasses. He looked different, still precise, still powerful but more relaxed without the blazer. His sleeves were rolled up and he had a navy apron tied over his button-down. "You cooked?" she asked, stunned. He looked up and offered a small smile. "I figured you might appreciate something that didn't come with paparazzi." Danica stepped inside slowly, her heels clicking against the polished wooden floor. "You have a chef, don't you?" "3," he said, handing her a glass. "But I didn't call any of them." "I wanted tonight to be quiet." She looked around. "This place is too much," he offered. She laughed under her breath. "It's beautiful, but yeah, definitely too much." He motioned to the table. "Come sit. I promise the food's edible." They sat and he lifted the silver dome over the plates. It was salmon perfectly seared, with roasted vegetables arranged like art. Danica took a bite, then looked up at him. "Okay, I didn't expect you to be able to cook." "I built my first company in a studio apartment above a Chinese takeout place. I learned to cook because I couldn't afford delivery." She paused. "You started from scratch," he nodded. "Didn't have much growing up. My mother worked nights. I taught myself code with a library computer and a second-hand keyboard I found at a thrift store." Danica stared at him. "You're serious?" "I try not to talk about it unless I mean it." She set her fork down. "Why did you ask me here, Marcus, really?" He leaned back in his chair, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Because you're the first person in a long time who didn't want anything from me," he said. "You didn't know who I was, you weren't trying to pitch me or impress me, you just were you." Danica's heart beat faster. "I don't do this," she said. "Fancy dinners in places with art on the plates. This isn't my world, I know." "Then why invite me in?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because maybe I'm tired of mine." For a long second, neither of them spoke. The city glittered behind them, the candles flickered. Her wine glass was still half full, but her head already felt dizzy. "Do you always move this fast?" she asked, trying to lighten the mood. "No," he said, "but something about you makes me want to." That pulled a laugh from her, sharp and disbelieving. "I'm a mess, Marcus. I can't even guarantee I'll have a job next week." "I don't care, you should." "I don't." She stared at him. "You're insane." "You already told me that." She shook her head, then picked up her fork again. "Fine. But if you're expecting me to turn into someone who knows which fork to use for the salad, I'm going to disappoint you." "I like that you don't." They ate, and after dinner he walked her to the elevator. She expected a goodbye and maybe a vague promise to call. Instead, he gently took her hand. "Come with me tomorrow." "Where?" "Somewhere different." She narrowed her eyes. "You're not going to tell me?" "No, is this a test? If it were, you'd already pass." She looked down at their hands. His thumb brushed over her knuckles, warm and steady. "Okay," she said. "But if you tell me we're going skydiving, I'm out." He laughed. "Noted." As the elevator doors closed, she leaned back against the mirrored wall, heart racing. This wasn't just a date, it was something else, something dangerous, because she was starting to want more, and that terrified her. The next evening, Danica stood on the marble steps of a building she had never dared to enter before. It was one of those sleek, glass and stone structures that screamed exclusivity. A valet had opened the door for her without asking for a name, and a woman in a black suit had greeted her with a quiet, "Mr. Keller is waiting for you upstairs." Danica didn't ask questions, she just followed, her pulse thudding in her ears. The woman led her into a private elevator that required a thumbprint to operate. When the doors slid open, the space that greeted her wasn't another penthouse. It was a gallery, high ceilings, walls lined with abstract paintings, sculptures displayed under soft, golden lighting. The entire floor had been converted into a private art exhibit, and Marcus stood at the center, his hands in his pockets, watching her approach. "You didn't say it was an art gallery," she said, looking around. "I thought you were going to take me to a rooftop or something." "I wanted to show you something that mattered to you," he replied, her eyes narrowed. "How do you know this matters to me? You told me you paint murals. That you studied art. That doesn't mean I belong in a place like this." He walked toward a canvas near the corner. "That one's yours." Danica blinked. "What?" He stepped aside so she could see it better. It was a photograph of her mural in Brooklyn one she had poured 3 weekends and all her leftover paint into. Vivid swirls of color, hands reaching through a storm, a child's face in profile. She had painted it anonymously, half convinced it would be painted over in a few months. "How did you?" "I had one of my team track down the artist," Marcus said. "They traced it through the neighborhood council. You signed a permit with your name on it." She stared at the image, stunned. "You put this in a gallery," he nodded. "People should see what you can do." Danica turned to him slowly. "You're trying to impress me." "No," he said. "I'm trying to honor you." She exhaled, the tension in her shoulders unraveling in pieces. "This is overwhelming. I can take you somewhere else." "No," she said quickly. "I want to be here. I just didn't expect this." "I didn't expect you," he said quietly. She looked at him, and for the first time since they met, she saw something more than confidence in his eyes. There was vulnerability there, carefully tucked behind control. He was used to orchestrating every moment, but with her, he was clearly guessing. "Why me?" she asked, not because she didn't want the answer, but because she needed to hear it. He walked with her through the gallery as he spoke. "Most people I meet already have a version of me in their heads. They expect things, they want things. You didn't. You just spilled a smoothie on me and then offered to pay for my shirt. I still feel bad about that." "You shouldn't. It was the best accident I've had in years." Danica shook her head. "I'm not polished, Marcus. I don't wear heels well. I hate networking events, and I once got into an argument with a gallery curator about why art doesn't need to be explained to be powerful." He grinned. "Good. I'd rather be with someone who argues for meaning than someone who performs for approval." They paused in front of another wall, this one blank except for a single canvas. It was a minimalist piece, just 3 bold strokes across white. "I bought that one last year," Marcus said. "Everyone praised it. Critics called it visually arresting. I didn't understand it then. Still don't." Danica studied it, then gave a small shrug. "Sometimes people pretend to like things they don't understand because they're afraid to admit they don't get it." He glanced at her. "That's what I like about you. You're not afraid." "I'm terrified," she said. "I just don't see the point in pretending not to be." A silence stretched between them, heavier now, not awkward, just full. He reached into his pocket and held out something small, a key. She stared at it. "What's that?" "A studio space. Upstairs." Danica blinked. "You're giving me a studio? I'm offering you one. Rent-free for 6 months, no strings. I know how hard it is to create while worrying about bills. I want to give you a place to work." She didn't take it. Instead, she looked him straight in the eye. "What happens if I say no?" "Then nothing changes," he said. "We go to dinner, we talk, I see you again tomorrow, but I'll still want you to have it." Her voice was quiet. "Are you buying me?" His jaw tightened slightly. "No. I'm giving you space to be yourself." Danica hesitated, then took the key, not because she was convinced, but because she wanted to believe. "Thank you," she said. He nodded. "Come upstairs, I want to show you something." They took a spiral staircase tucked behind one of the gallery walls. It led to a lofted floor with tall windows, a long wooden work table, and blank canvases leaning against the walls. There were brushes, paint, tools. Everything she'd ever needed but never had in one place. She stepped inside like someone stepping into a dream. "You set this up." "I had it prepared after our first dinner." "That was 2 nights ago. I move fast." She turned to face him. "What if I mess this up?" "You won't." "You don't know that." "I believe it." Danica swallowed. "You believe in me more than I do. Then let me hold that belief until you catch up." That silenced her more than anything else he could have said. She walked to the nearest canvas and ran a hand along its edge. "I haven't painted for myself in over a year," she admitted. "Then start now." He didn't hover. He didn't push. He just stood there, letting her be, and for the first time since she moved to New York, Danica felt like she wasn't fighting the current, like someone had thrown her a rope and waited without dragging her toward the shore. She turned back to him. "I don't know where this is going," she said. "I'm not asking you to, but I'm scared." "So am I." Danica nodded once. "Okay," and she meant it. Danica stood in front of the largest canvas in the studio, her fingers streaked with cobalt and ochre. a drying palette balanced on her arm. The city beyond the windows buzzed with quiet motion, but up here, the world had narrowed to brushstrokes and breath. Marcus had left hours ago without fanfare, asking only if she wanted dinner later. She'd nodded without thinking, too lost in the rhythm of painting to answer properly. He hadn't minded, he never pressed when she was in her element. Now, as the last traces of sunlight pulled shadows across the floor, she stepped back and looked at what she'd made. It wasn't perfect. But it was hers. The knock came lightly, followed by the creak of the door. She turned, expecting Marcus. Instead, a woman entered with a clipboard, impeccably dressed in a dark blouse and sleek trousers. Her gaze swept the room with quick precision before settling on Danica. "You must be Miss Reed," the woman said. "I'm Eliza. I manage Mr. Keller's private acquisitions." Danica blinked. "His what?" Eliza walked over to the table and set down the clipboard. "He's requested your work be submitted for the upcoming Foundation Gala, the one benefiting emerging artists. I'm here to help coordinate that." Danica set her palette down slowly. "He didn't mention that." "I assumed he would have," Eliza said. Then, with a softened tone, "He speaks highly of you." Danica crossed her arms. "What exactly does this gala involve? Your piece, if selected, will be auctioned alongside others from rising talent. Half the proceeds go to the Keller Foundation's outreach programs. The rest go to you." "I didn't agree to sell anything," Eliza nodded. "You're under no obligation, but I've seen the list. Your name's already on the program." Danica's heart thudded. "He didn't ask me." Marcus rarely operates within the expected. After Eliza left, Danica sat on the floor, suddenly cold despite the summer heat lingering in the air. She pressed her back to the wall and stared at the canvas again, the colors now shadowed in the dimming light. He believed in her. That wasn't the problem. The problem was that he'd made a decision for her. When Marcus returned later that evening, she met him at the door without a smile. "You put my name on a program without telling me," she said. He paused, holding a paper bag that smelled of roasted garlic and rosemary. "You spoke about wanting to be seen." "I wanted to choose when I was ready." He stepped inside, setting the bag on the counter before facing her fully. "It wasn't meant to be pressure. It was meant to be support." "You don't get to make that call alone," he nodded slowly. "You're right." Danica folded her arms. "You're used to deciding things for people. I get it. That's how your world works. But mine doesn't. I'm learning that." "Are you?" He walked toward her, careful, measured. "I didn't mean to take the decision from you. I wanted to create space for you to say yes if you wanted to, not trap you in it." She searched his face and found something she hadn't expected: uncertainty. "You're not invincible, are you?" she asked. "Not even close." She exhaled and sat on the edge of the work table. "I panicked. I thought maybe this whole thing was just a project for you, polishing up some messy artist to prove you could." His brows drew together. "Is that what you think?" "It's what I was afraid of." He stepped closer. "Danica, I didn't fall for your art. I fell for the way you see the world, the way you challenge it, the way you challenge me." Her voice came quieter now. "You fell." He reached for her hand. Hard, she didn't pull away. "I don't want to be another person you fix," she said. "You're not broken." Her defenses cracked. He pulled a small velvet pouch from his jacket and set it beside her. "I was going to wait." She stared at it. "Wait for what?" He untied the string and opened it, revealing a delicate bracelet. Not flashy, not dripping in gemstones. Just a single, thin gold band with a tiny charm in the center, a miniature palette no bigger than her thumbnail. "I asked one of my designers to make it," he said, "to remind you that your art matters. Even when you doubt it." She picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. "You're not going to stop, are you? Not unless you ask me to." She stood and wrapped her arms around his waist, pressing her forehead to his chest. He held her like he'd been waiting for that moment since the day she crashed into him on the sidewalk. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I. But I want this." He kissed the top of her head. "Then let's figure it out together." A week later, the gala bloomed into motion like a dream. Danica stood near the edge of the ballroom, her dress a deep, stormy blue that caught the light when she moved. Around her, the city's elite mingled beneath chandeliers and strings of suspended glass. Her painting hung along the far wall, lit by a soft spotlight. She hadn't expected the reaction. People stopped in front of it, discussed it, wrote notes. Marcus stayed by her side, not as a CEO or a patron, but as someone who believed in her even when she didn't. When the bidding ended, her piece had sold for more than her yearly rent. She turned to Marcus, eyes wide. "That can't be real." "It is," he said, his voice low near her ear, "because you are." Later, as the evening wound down and the guests filtered out into the velvet night, Marcus led her up to the rooftop garden above the venue. It was quiet, the chaos below muffled by distance and moonlight. He took both her hands in his. "I've built a lot of things," he said. "Companies, buildings, legacies. But none of them felt like home until you walked into my life and turned it upside down." Danica's breath hitched. "I'm not asking for a perfect future," he said, "or a plan. I'm asking for a chance to keep building something that feels like this. With you." She didn't need a speech, or a diamond the size of a plum. She just needed his honesty, his heart right there for the taking. "Yes," she said, her voice steady. 1,000 times yes. He kissed her then, not hurried or hungry, but full of everything they hadn't said, everything they'd built between them. The city stretched wide beneath their feet, but neither of them looked down, because they weren't falling anymore, they were flying together. Danica sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor of the studio, surrounded by dried paint tubes and sheets of sketch paper. Her phone buzzed beside her, but she barely noticed. She was working on a new concept, a series that had bloomed in her mind after that night on the rooftop with Marcus. Not for a gallery, not for an auction, just for her. The door creaked open behind her and Marcus's voice followed. "You've been up here since sunrise." She turned and shielded her eyes from the golden spill of light behind him. "I lost track of time." Again, he walked in wearing a charcoal sweater and slacks, a coffee cup in each hand. "You didn't eat." "I wasn't hungry." "Liar," he said, handing her one of the cups. "You just forgot." She took it, the warmth seeping into her fingers. "You always keep tabs on me like this. You make it easy." She glanced at him as he crouched beside her. "You're supposed to be in meetings." "I canceled them." "You're not allowed to keep doing that. I'm the boss. I make the rules." "You're impossible. I'm in love." Danica's heart stuttered. He said it so plainly, like it was the only truth that mattered. And maybe it was. She reached out and touched the side of his face, fingertips pressing into the faint stubble along his jaw. "Marcus, I love you too." He kissed her like he needed to, like the words had unlocked something he'd kept sealed, something that had been simmering since the moment she crashed into his life and rewrote everything. She leaned into him, letting herself believe fully, fearlessly for the first time. Later that week, Marcus took her to a house just outside the city. It sat on a quiet stretch of land, surrounded by old trees and thick ivy crawling along the stone archway leading to the front door. The sky was cloudless, the air warm with that heady scent of summer that always came before a storm. He didn't say anything as they walked through the garden gate. Inside, the house was sunlit and quiet, with tall ceilings and wide windows that framed every view like a painting. Danica paused in the living room. "Whose house is this?" "Ours," Marcus said. She turned to him, stunned. "What?" "I bought it last year. I didn't know why at the time. I just knew I needed somewhere quieter, somewhere real. I didn't think I'd find the reason so soon." She looked around again, at the worn hardwood floors and built-in shelves, at the overgrown roses outside the window and the sunroom that faced the east. "You're serious." "I want to build a life with you, Danica." She swallowed hard. "I've never had anything like this." "Neither have I." He handed her a key. She took it without hesitation. The weeks that followed settled into something neither of them had ever experienced before. Not just passion, not just excitement, but peace. Marcus still ran Keller Innovations, but now he worked from a home office that overlooked the garden, where Danica sometimes painted barefoot in the grass. She filled the sunroom with canvases and small sculptures. He filled the kitchen with laughter and late-night dinners made from scratch. One Saturday afternoon, she sat on the back steps, her legs pulled to her chest as she watched the wind move through the trees. Marcus stepped outside, barefoot like her, holding a notebook. "What's that?" she asked. He handed it to her. "Read the first page." She opened it. Her heart stalled. It wasn't just a letter, it was a proposal, not grand, not public, just him on paper telling her every reason he loved her, every moment she changed him. Every part of his life that felt more alive because she was in it. She lowered the notebook, eyes burning. "Is this what I think it is?" He knelt in front of her and pulled a velvet box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, with a tiny sapphire set beside the diamond. "I don't want a public ceremony or press releases. I don't want 1,000 guests or a ballroom. I just want you. In this house, in our life, forever." Tears slipped down her cheeks. Yes, they married in the garden 3 weeks later, just the two of them and a local officiant. Danica wore a dress she'd sewn herself, a soft cream silk that moved like water. Marcus wore a navy vest and no tie. They stood barefoot in the grass where they'd first talked about building a life, and they said their vows in voices too quiet for anyone else to hear. Afterward, they danced under string lights he'd hung himself, and she laughed until her throat hurt. "You know," she whispered as they swayed, "I used to think I didn't fit anywhere." "You don't," he said, brushing her hair back. "You're not meant to fit. You're meant to lead." She kissed him long and deep, and in that kiss was every moment they'd fought for, every chance, every choice, every leap of faith. Years passed. Danica's work became a staple in the art world, not because Marcus pulled strings, but because she earned it. Her murals spread across cities. Her sculptures found homes in public gardens and private collections. She started a foundation of her own, offering free studio space to young artists who couldn't afford rent, just as Marcus had once done for her. Marcus scaled back his empire, focusing instead on mentorship and innovation that mattered. Together, they hosted community events at their home, turning their garden into a place where people felt seen. Every morning, he made her coffee and placed it on the windowsill beside her easel. Every night, she curled into his arms with paint still on her hands and a smile that never faded. They didn't need a spotlight. They didn't need headlines, they had each other, and it was more than enough.